Hey guys, before we start the video, I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Aura. Now, if you recall, I had my Google account hacked before, and I nearly lost everything attached to it. We're talking my email, my YouTube accounts, how I make my living, currently, all was taken from me. It really opened my eyes to the dangers of today and just how exposed we truly are to scammers, spammers, hackers, etc. I also found out that my information was being sold through data brokers. For those who may be unaware, data brokers sell your information to anyone else who could send you spam mail slash email, text messages. They can attempt to scam you online, get into your accounts, anything. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives. It's all out there. It's scary. I tried manually searching and seeing if I could scrub away the information, and I did find that they had some of my old addresses, phone numbers, even a P.O. box that I used while I was attending university. But there are just too many data brokers out there. It seemed impossible. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to access my social media accounts, bank accounts, other sensitive information, you name it. Aura do more than just that, though. They offer antivirus protection, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, just to name a few tools in their one package suite. You don't need multiple applications to do all these things anymore, or have it all under one name. And for this level of protection, it's honestly a good price. Right now you can sign up using my link at aura.com/Nate narrates and get a 2-week free trial to try them out for yourselves. They even have family plans so you can protect yourself and your loved ones. Honestly, it's brought me so much peace of mind that I can get back to making videos and pursuing my passion without worrying if I've left any devices vulnerable. It's always good to be prepared for potential threats, even the ones you can't see. At least with Aura, I know I'm protected online no matter what device I use. If you've been wondering what you should be using online to protect yourself, you should probably click the link today and try it out for yourselves. That's aura.com/Nate narrates, NATENARRATES. I'll also pop the link in the description below. Right, on with the story. Willow Creek Cult. On a misty autumn evening, the ethereal veil of Willow Creek descended upon the world, casting an eerie shroud over the town. This was the night that Erin, a fervent investigative journalist, descended into its heart, her destiny entwined with the vicious rumors whispered through the town's darkened alleys. With relentless determination, Erin armed herself with a notebook brimming with empty pages and a camera ready to capture the unfathomable. She treaded into the enigmatic woods, where the tall, gnarled trees stood like ancient sentinels guarding secrets not meant for mortal eyes. As she ventured deeper into the woods, a chilling sensation settled over her, akin to 1,000 unseen eyes fixated on her every move. The air seemed to hum with trepidation and veiled horror, wrapping around her like a cold, clammy shroud. Her steps led her to discover an old and decrepit cabin, shrouded in a veil of shadows, its windows shattered. Vines had woven a twisted tapestry upon its walls, reclaiming the decaying structure. The sight alone should have been enough to deter any soul, but Erin was possessed by curiosity, her heart and mind locked in a relentless dance between fear and the thirst for revelation. She gingerly pushed open the creaking door, its mournful groan slicing through the stifling silence. The air within was a tangible presence, laden with a nauseating stench that seemed to originate from the depths of decay and something far more sinister. A creeping dread inched its way up her spine as she stepped cautiously over the threshold, the beam of her flashlight casting long, wavering shadows that danced like restless spirits. The cabin appeared to be a place of assembly for malevolent souls, its very foundations bearing witness to unspeakable rituals. Bizarre symbols had been etched into the floor and walls, each mark speaking of a sinister devotion. The further Erin ventured, the more the atmosphere clung to her like a heavy, oppressive shroud, suffocating her with its vile secrets. It was as though the very walls whispered in dark tongues, recounting tales of unspeakable atrocities committed in the name of an unfathomable power. Then, just as dread was about to consume her entirely, a rustling emanated from behind her, causing her to spin around with a heart-pounding urgency. The beam of her flashlight flickered, revealing a tattered rug beneath her feet. It was there, nestled in the very fabric of the cabin, that she discovered a hidden trap door. The moment hung suspended like a drawn breath as she hesitated, her courage and insatiable curiosity wrestling in the recesses of her mind. Erin mustered her will, her fingers trembling as she pried open the trap door. Below, she descended into a narrow, dimly lit tunnel that seemed to stretch endlessly into the earth's bowels. Each step further was a descent into a nightmarish abyss. The dread that clung to her thickened with each passing moment as the ancient whispers of the cult's loathsome practices resounded in her mind. Minutes stretched into hours, and time seemed to flip through her fingers like elusive shadows. But finally, she stumbled upon a chamber that froze her very soul. It was a place of wicked sanctity, adorned with ominous symbols etched in profane ink. Eerie altars, crafted for unholy rituals, defiled the sanctity of the room, casting an oppressive malevolence. At the center, an abhorrent statue loomed, a grotesque figure that seemed to observe her with an uncanny awareness. Terror coursed through her veins, but Erin was resolute in her quest for the truth. Her camera clicked, and her pen scratched against her notebook, recording the terrible tableau before her. The chamber's ground felt unnaturally cold beneath her feet, and an insidious chill permeated her bones. Faint, distant chanting echoed through the labyrinthine tunnels, intertwining with the pulsating beat of her racing heart. Panic clawed at her throat as she realized she was not alone in this forsaken labyrinth. She turned to leave, her steps hastened by a growing sense of unease, but she took a wrong turn in her disorientation. The labyrinth of tunnels conspired against her, twisting into a bewildering maze. Then, as if guided by some sinister hand, she stumbled into an obscure hidden chamber. Before her stood a ghastly congregation of cultists, their faces concealed behind grotesque masks that mirrored the malevolence that dwelled within their souls. Their chants grew louder and more frantic, echoing like a dark, pulsating heartbeat throughout the chamber. Paralyzed with fear, Erin remained shrouded in the shadows, her very breath suspended in her lungs, praying that they wouldn't sense her presence. The cultists had gathered around a blood-stained altar, upon which lay a young man, his wide eyes reflecting the terror that gripped his very soul. Erin's heart turned to ice as she witnessed the unthinkable ritual unfolding before her very eyes. The cultists chanted in a guttural, ancient language, their devotion intensifying with every incantation. A dagger, its blade gleaming malevolently, was raised high in preparation for the unspeakable sacrifice. Erin's instincts finally surged to the forefront, propelling her to break free from her petrified state. In a desperate bid for escape, she turned and fled into the darkness. Her frantic footsteps echoed through the labyrinthine tunnels. Her flight, fueled by the very essence of fear itself. She knocked over a precarious stack of crates, causing a raucous clatter that reverberated through the chamber, like the tolling of her own doom. The cultists froze, their heads snapping toward the source of the disturbance. Their malevolent gaze settled upon Erin in that dreadful moment, hidden in the shadows. A chilling tableau of terror ensued, with the cultists converging toward her location, their masks obscuring any trace of humanity. In her trembling retreat, she knew her chances of escape were rapidly diminishing. Yet, Erin refused to submit to the grasp of diabolic fate. She sprinted through the tunnels, each step bringing her closer to freedom. The cultists' relentless pursuit echoed behind her, their chants growing louder, the stench of blood and decay enveloping her like an ominous shroud. The labyrinth seemed interminable, a cruel riddle designed to trap her. But her determination to survive, to unveil the truth, propelled her forward. Miraculously, she stumbled upon the elusive entrance, and as she burst into the open air, the night seemed to gasp in relief. The sinister grip of the cult loosened, and she sprinted toward her car, the cacophonous footsteps of the cultists fading into the distance. The bitter presence of Willow Creek clung to her even as she sped away, like a haunting spectre that refused to relinquish its grip. But Erin never returned to Willow Creek. The chilling memories of that harrowing night remained etched in her psyche, a grim reminder of the horrors concealed beneath the facade of a seemingly peaceful town. The sinister cult of Willow Creek continued to practice its unholy rites in the shadows, leaving an indelible mark of terror on anyone who dared to uncover the unfathomable truth. It was a memory she would carry to her grave, a constant reminder of the darkness hidden beneath the surface of even the most serene places. Willow Creek Swamp. A treacherous and otherworldly swamp lay at the heart of Willow Creek, nestled like a vicious secret. Its murky depths were cloaked in an impenetrable shroud of darkness, a place so menacing that even the bravest souls dared not venture within. In hushed tones, the townspeople recounted the haunting legends that swirled like phantoms around the swamp. They spoke of a voodoo priestess, her soul trapped by her own sinister magic, cursed to haunt the swamp's shadows for all eternity. In fearful whispers, they christened her the Voodoo Queen of Willow, a spectral entity whose reign was said to manifest as undead abominations rising from the mire to torment the living. This is the backdrop against which a group of audacious young friends, known far and wide for their daring forays into the abyss of the unknown, embarked on an ill-fated quest to probe the very depths of these harrowing tales. Leading the perilous expedition was Sam, a charismatic and fearless young man whose thirst for adventure was insatiable. By his side was Claire, his confidant, equally dauntless and astute. Nick, the resident skeptic and fervent science enthusiast, lent a measure of skepticism to the group. At the same time, Rose, the empathic and intuitive one, harbored a belief in the supernatural that transcended reason. On a moonlit night, the heavens veiled their stars, and a sinister canopy of twisted trees cast haunting shadows on the quartet. They gathered at the threshold of the foreboding swamp, where the air hung heavy with a sense of impending doom. "Are we truly going through with this?" Nick hesitated, his gaze fixed uneasily upon the swamp's ominous silhouette. Sam, the charismatic leader, brushed off his concerns with a chuckle. "Come on, Nick. You're not letting these swamp tales get to you, are you?" Claire chimed in, her voice tinged with bravado. "Exactly. This is just an adventure after all. What's the worst that could happen?" But Rose, ever attuned to the unseen forces at play, voiced her ominous concerns. "There is a darkness here, an ancient enmity. We must tread with great caution." Reluctantly, Nick nodded, and the quartet descended into the enigmatic heart of the swamp. The beams of their flashlights pierced the inky blackness, revealing gnarled branches in the murky waters below. As they delved deeper, the air became increasingly oppressive, and the distant croaking of frogs contributed to the eerie ambiance. With every step, the swamp seemed to awaken, with shadowy forms shifting in the obscurity and eerie sounds echoing through the night. Their nerves were stretched to the breaking point, but their insatiable thirst for the unknown propelled them onward. The adrenaline of uncharted territory pushed them further into the abyss, and hours passed as they reached a clearing hidden within the swamp's sinister heart. An overpowering stench of decay permeated the air, and the mist thickened, obscuring their vision to mere feet. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush sent a shiver down their spines. "What was that?" Claire whispered, her flashlight trembling in her grip. Nick's skepticism wavered as he stammered. "It's probably just an animal. Let's keep moving." Their disquiet intensified, yet they forged ahead, their flashlights revealing the grotesque spectacle of twisted trees and gnarled roots. Then, an otherworldly chill ran down their spines, a ghastly moan that could only belong to the supernatural. Paralyzed by terror, they fumbled for their flashlights, illuminating the unnerving figures before them, humanoid shapes with hollow, lifeless eyes and rotting flesh. The legends were no mere tales. The swamp zombies had risen. In their horrified stupor, the zombies closed in, moving with a grotesque, disjointed gait, their ghastly moans echoing through the air. Sam's frantic cry shattered the suffocating stillness. "Run!" In a heart-pounding frenzy, they turned and fled, their hearts thundering with fear. The swamp seemed to come alive, its darkness closing in around them, the undead relentlessly pursuing the living. Desperation gave rise to an instinctive decision, and the group fragmented, each member hoping to outwit their implacable pursuers. Claire stumbled through the marshy ground, the sounds of pursuit echoing in the relentless dark. She lost her footing and plunged into a patch of muck, struggling to regain her balance. A clammy hand clamped onto her ankle with bone-chilling intensity as she clambered to her feet. Her scream pierced the night as she writhed and fought to break free, the grip growing tighter with each agonizing moment. Meanwhile, Nick and Rose confronted their own nightmarish ordeal. Nick's skeptical inclinations were shredded to tatters as he grappled with the grotesque reality before him. On the other hand, Rose tapped into her intuitive faculties, her senses attuned to the ill-natured presence of the Voodoo Queen's curse. Sam, isolated and outnumbered, held his ground in the swamp's heart. His commendable courage seemed futile as the undead horde closed in. Just as he believed his fate was irrevocably sealed, the ground beneath him quaked, and a resounding roar echoed through the swamp. The cursed zombies hesitated, ceasing their assault abruptly. The earth trembled, the undead figures disintegrated into the muck, their mournful cries fading into the night. As the dust settled, the group reconvened, battered but miraculously alive. The swamp fell eerily silent, the oppressive darkness lifting as the first light of dawn approached. They retreated from the swamp, the unspeakable horrors they had witnessed etched into their memories forever. The legend of the Voodoo Queen and her army of zombies in the swamplands endured a chilling reminder of the hostility lurking within the shadows, a dire warning to those who dared to court the enigmatic heart of Willow Creek, the siren of Willow Creek. The air was crisp and laden with the sweet scent of fallen leaves on that fateful autumn evening. Adrian embarked on a solitary walk as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, wistful shadows through the dense woodland. The woods of Willow Creek beckoned to him, their ancient trees standing like sentinels, guarding secrets buried in the earth. Adrian's footsteps crunched softly on the carpet of dried leaves as he meandered through the forest, the fading light bathing the world in hues of fiery orange and deep purple. In the distance, a glimmer of movement caught his attention. A figure, barely discernible in the dimming light, stood by the edge of a tranquil lake. Intrigued, he approached cautiously, every step a whisper in the fading twilight. As he drew closer, the ethereal beauty of the woman unfolded before him, a vision that would forever haunt his thoughts. Her skin was as pale as the moon, contrasting starkly with her long, flowing ebony hair. Her eyes, dark as the lake's depths, seemed to pierce through the encroaching darkness, holding untold secrets and stories. She stood as if she were a nymph born of the forest, embodying its silent allure. Adrian's heart skipped a beat as he watched her from a distance, captivated by her presence. She seemed to be in a world of her own, a realm known only to her. He felt an irresistible pull towards her, as though some mystical force had taken hold of his very being. The beauty of this woman was unlike anything he had ever seen, and her enigmatic aura held him in its thrall. Days flowed into weeks, and Adrian's obsession with the mysterious woman deepened with each passing moment. He returned to the lake daily, consumed by the desire to catch another glimpse of her. His responsibilities and relationships, once important to him, began to wither as her image overtook his thoughts. The whispers of Willow Creek grew louder, tales of a mysterious entity that ensnared unsuspecting souls into madness. But Adrian, blind to the warnings, pressed on, his obsession with the woman intensifying. He painted her portrait precisely, capturing every nuance of her mesmerizing features. His poems and songs flowed like a torrential river, an outpouring of devotion to the woman who had taken residence in his heart. But she remained elusive, a distant vision that tormented his mind and refused to acknowledge his presence. As autumn deepened and the days grew colder, Adrian's grip on reality continued to slip. The rustling leaves whispered her name, and her silhouette haunted him in the inky darkness of the night. The townsfolk began to take notice of his erratic behavior, murmuring that the woods had once again claimed a victim, just as the legends foretold. One moonlit night, driven to the brink of desperation, Adrian ventured into the heart of the Willow Creek woods, determined to confront the woman who had become the sole occupant of his thoughts. The echoes of her laughter, both haunting and enchanting, guided him deeper into the shadows. With every step, he felt as though he was being drawn into an alternate reality where she held the strings of his fate. At last, he reached a small clearing where a gnarled tree stood as a sentinel, bathed in a surreal otherworldly glow. Beneath the ancient tree, there she stood, the woman of his obsession, radiating a beauty that defied the boundaries of the natural world. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice an enchanting melody. "You've come." Adrian's heart pounded in his chest as he drew nearer, compelled by forces beyond his control. "Yes, my beauty, I have," he replied, his voice trembling. "But I must ask, who are you? Why do you linger in the woods, always alone?" Her lips curved into a mesmerizing smile, and her dark eyes bore into his soul. "I am the reflection of your desires, Adrian, the embodiment of that which you yearn for, but can never truly possess." Adrian's knees gave way, and he fell to the forest floor, a jumble of emotions coursing through him, a mixture of love, longing, and despair. "Please," he implored, tears streaming down his face. "I need to be with you. I cannot endure this torment any longer." The woman shook her head, her eyes holding a sorrowful wisdom. "You cannot have me, for I was never yours to have. Your obsession is but a construct of your own making, a mirage born from your desires." Tears welled in Adrian's eyes as he watched her form begin to dissipate, fading into the shadows like a wisp of smoke. He reached out, his fingers grasping at empty air, desperate to hold on to her. At that moment, the total weight of his madness crashed down upon him. He had lost himself in a phantom, a ghost of his own desires. The realization shattered his fragile psyche, and he screamed in anguish, the sound echoing through the woods, a lament that would linger in the hearts of those who heard it. The following day, the townsfolk discovered Adrian, a broken and hollow shell of a man, curled on the forest floor, rocking back and forth, muttering incoherent gibberish. The only words they can discern from his ravings were, "I must have her." Before long, Adrian was committed to an institution, his mind forever haunted by the memory of an unattainable woman of Willow Creek's forest. His desire to possess her beauty had confined him to a world of narrowed thoughts and perpetual longing. In the town of Willow Creek, the legend of Adrian's madness lived on, a cautionary tale for all who ventured too close to the shadows of desire. It served as a stark reminder of the perils of obsession, a lesson etched in the chronicles of the town's history, a reminder never to heed the alluring call of the beautiful woman in the woods. The Willow Creek Mimic. The Henderson family's home was a melancholy abode, nestled deep within the heart of the decaying hamlet of Willow Creek. Surrounded by shrouded, foreboding woods, the dwelling served as a lonely outpost in a place untouched by the vibrancy of modernity. James Henderson, a man of middle years, possessed an unassuming demeanor that masked the complex emotions that churned within him. He stood as the patriarch of what appeared to be a conventional family, but the eerie mysteries that lurked within the dark woods cast a sinister pall over their lives. The tale of horror that would consume the Hendersons began on a fog-shrouded evening when James first bore witness to uncanny occurrences that defied explanation. Shadows danced ominously, their movements a grotesque mimicry of his own. Skepticism and dread gnawed at his psyche as he desperately sought to rationalize these unnerving anomalies. Was it the burden of his occupation weighing heavily on his mind, or perhaps an overactive imagination pushed to its limits? James struggled to dismiss his unease, attributing it to his wife's recent and tragic loss and a calamity that had left an indelible scar on his soul. But as days turned into weeks, a phantom figure materialized in his life, an evil twin who stood ominously by the wayside, its face twisted into a wicked grin. An icy tremor coursed down James's spine, and he grasped at the notion that it was nothing more than a trick of the light, a fleeting optical illusion. He yearned to banish the gnawing unease, desperate to evade the clutches of an ever-swelling paranoia that threatened to consume him. Yet, the sinister figure persisted, a constant and unwelcome visitor, lurking in the shadows, its watchful eyes fixated upon its prey. The reflection in the mirror, once a faithful mirror of James's soul, began subtly transforming. Warm, kind eyes turned cold, and a once loving smile contorted into a ghastly rictus of malevolence. James, his sanity beginning to fracture, decided to confide in his adolescent daughter, Jessica. He shared these terrifying phenomena, but in her youthful innocence, she dismissed them as mere hallucinations, a byproduct of her father's unrelenting grief. Days stacked upon days, and the malign presence of the counterpart in the mirror became ever more pronounced. It ceased to mirror James's motions precisely. Instead, it acted with an eerie autonomy, evoking a profound sense of vengeful intent. It hissed vile persuasions, urging James to abandon his human form and embrace its wicked existence. James's sanity was stretched to the breaking point as he realized he must unravel the mysteries concealed within the woods before the toll became irreparable. In search of solace and enlightenment, James ventured deep into the haunting forest, where the whispers of the demonic counterpart became more apparent, its incantations weaving a dreadful tapestry of terror. Guided by an unnatural force, he stumbled upon an antiquated, decrepit cabin, concealed amidst the gnarled trees. As he hesitantly pried the creaking door ajar, a miasmic odor of decay filled the air, forcing him to pull his shirt over his nose. James carefully explored the room, discovering ink-stained pages from an ancient journal resting atop a beaten wooden desk. The journal belonged to a man named Samuel, a prior resident of Willow Creek, who had faced the same malevolent terror that now besieged James. Samuel's testimonials recounted the creature, a vile entity he had aptly named the Shade Walker. This dreadful creature thrived on fear, stealthily supplanting its victims and infiltrating their lives until complete assimilation was achieved. Terrified by this revelation, James knew he had no choice but to confront his sinister counterpart. Armed with newfound knowledge, he returned home, but as he hastily moved through the house, James stopped dead in his tracks upon passing a mirror. Upon gazing into the reflective glass, he was horrified to see his reflection utterly enthralled by the Shadewalker. The crooked grin etched upon his reflection's face filled James with abject terror as the abomination emerged from the mirror, a blasphemous caricature of his former self. Amid this horrifying discovery, James heard the innocent voice of his daughter emanating from down the hall. "Daddy? Is that you?" A shiver shot down James's spine as adrenaline coursed through his veins. With his daughter at the forefront of his mind, James lunged at the Shadewalker, only to crash into an invisible barrier. A knot twisted in James's stomach as he threw his fists forward, only to have them slam fruitlessly into the mysterious invisible barricade. Unaware of the impending peril, Jessica greeted her father with an innocent smile. Her father looked down at the girl and enfolded her in his cold, lifeless arms. As James stared from the mirror, he saw the Shadewalker leering back at him through his own set eyes, a wicked smile crawling on its face. Days turned into weeks, and the genuine James remained imprisoned within the accursed mirror, a helpless witness to the Shadewalker's macabre masquerade. In her youthful wisdom, Jessica perceived the gradual transformation in her father's demeanor, yet she clung to fleeting, ignorant hope, believing that all would soon revert to normalcy. However, the Shadewalker unveiled its true malevolence on one fateful evening. It overpowered Jessica, bringing her before the mirror her father was trapped in. The creature fed on her flesh, leaving her lifeless and unrecognizable on the floor. The creature reveled in the grotesque act, its hellish laughter echoing through the barren abode as it bathed in the Henderson suffering before disappearing into the night. In the depths of the accursed town, the woeful saga of the Henderson family echoed through the time-worn trees, a haunting parable of the unnerving force that lingered within Willow Creek. The Shadewalker disappeared into the trees, vanishing into the obscurity of the woods, where it would continue its reign of terror. It preyed upon the vulnerable, leaving behind a trail of fractured lives and shattered souls in its wake. And within the confines of the cursed mirror, James's tormented reflection bore witness to a new addition to his cursed purgatory. The remains of his daughter now lay at his feet, a haunting reminder of the horrors that had befallen his family, to be viewed for the rest of eternity.